Now, these are some different options for consideration when you're transitioning a snake of any age, no matter how long they've been with you, from the habitat they've been living in into something different or something larger. So it might be a juvenile snake that you're going to move into a bigger enclosure. It might just be a snake that you've had for years that you want to move into a new enclosure. Or in the case that I'm going to show you with Ezra, it might be a new addition to your family that you want to move into some type of either permanent habitat or an intermediate habitat that they're going to live in until they're older. So the first option for consideration is to place the snake's entire living container into the larger enclosure and then leave an opening in it. Leave the door open, leave the top off, cut a hole in it. So basically nothing has changed at all for the animal, and they just think you forgot to close the door, or they have suddenly found an escape route and they can come and go as they please. That causes the least amount of distress for the animal because everything is just exactly the same for them, and they're able to just start coming out of their existing habitat as they choose and when they feel ready to do that. The second option for consideration is to use the larger enclosure or the habitat that you're going to move the snake into as an enrichment area or as an exercise space for that snake to use when it's out of its regular habitat until it becomes so comfortable, familiar with, and used to that other space because it's exercised in it and used it as an enrichment space so many times that it's no big deal to that animal when it now just stays in it permanently one day. I really like this method as well, and it works well if you can't fit the old enclosure inside the new enclosure. And then the third option, which isn't my favorite, but it's kind of neutral. That's why I have these two just black lines here. It works, but it isn't ideal. And that's to move all of the furnishings and the substrate from the snake's current living space into the new one. And you want to do that without cleaning anything. So don't clean the substrate, don't pull urates or feces out. Well, I mean, you can put clean fresh water, but don't wipe off or clean any of the furnishings. Just move everything out of the old habitat and into the new one so that all of those things are moving with your snake and they all smell the same and feel the same and look the same. And while the external space that all of those things are in has changed, nothing about the substrate or the furnishings has changed. And I know that's difficult for us because we like things to be shiny and new and clean, but this is really a good way if you have to just make that transition from one enclosure to another to minimize distress. Just move the dirty substrate or the old substrate and all the furnishings with the snake and let them get used to that new space for a while before you clean things out. And then the other option for consideration, which is my least favorite, it is going to be the most distressing for the snake, is just to move the snake from the old habitat to the new one all at once with no gradual desensitization, no prior familiarization with the new habitat, no incremental transition, and not necessarily taking any of the furnishings or old substrate or anything with it. You're just, bam, taking it out of one habitat and putting it into a completely new space. That's going to be the most distressful for your animal.